it's a big concern, and people need to realize that this election has consequences, and that Europe has been successful because of solidarity over the past several decades. And if we give this up to simply resort to a rhetoric of hatred and divisions, that this is just going to come and hurt us in the long run, if not in the medium run. So we need to coalesce and stand up for our values and show that there is an alternative, demonstrate that there's a governing alternative. And there are examples of that. There are, for example, in Spain, we see a good case study for this. I think Syriza in Greece is providing a good alternative, and that's becoming all the more clear to people as time passes by. But we need to coordinate more. We have a more nuanced argument to make than the sound bites of the right. And this means that we have to triple, quadruple our efforts to be able to communicate that effectively. So I think there's an overall distrust in the political system, a distrust in the ability of the establishment to satisfy social needs. We're seeing this with the cost of living that's increased across the world, with massive income disparity, the inability of Europe to have its own clear foreign policy message, for example, against the atrocities taking place right now in Palestine, which once again is giving the impression that the European upper echelon is not really espousing the real hopes and expectations of the people. And so when you have this type of insecurity and this type of lack of responsiveness from the top, people usually point to immigrants, refugees, to the other. They try to find a scapegoat in someone else. And the left parties, and in general Social Democrats and the Green parties, we need to really come together and form a modern governance message, one that shows that there is a way outside of the constraints of austerity to create high quality growth, that there is a way to invest in climate adaptation and protect our children. There's a way to be strong on human rights across the world, including with our trade partners, and certainly when it comes to international geopolitical, again, as I said, atrocities like the civilians that are losing their lives now in Palestine. And we need to show that we understand the role of open markets, but with the right type of regulation, such that people can participate and that income inequalities dissipate over time. We have a modern governance credibility deficit in the left, and we need to create it we need to explain it in very simple terms to the European people, how we can govern in a way that's not all about big corporations and neoliberal ideologies. Look, we've had a lot of volatility within our party, within Syriza, since the last national elections, where we saw ourselves 23 points behind the governing party from the so-called center-right, even though a lot of their policies are hardcore right, in my view, and a lot of their candidates for Europe are from the far right. So we view what we're doing as a movement, and we're doing it authentically and with no regrets, with the truth that is part of our values, the values for solidarity, or the values for protecting the environment, for being proactive on the climate crisis we're all facing, on making sure that labor can participate in growth and have the rights for collective bargaining. For example, while the European directive is for 80% collective bargaining in vis-a-vis labor employer relations, in Greece we are about a quarter, about 25% or less on this front. So we're lacking we're far behind on that. So we are in the process now of renewing SYRIZA, of expanding our base. We have done a very good job, I think, of opening up our party infrastructure to let fresh talent come in, to digitalize our processes so that people can give us their feedback and get a response out of it. So I think it's just a matter of time until the people reward us for these changes we're making. It's a new paradigm of politics, and I think our ideology, together with our professionalism, will in the end be recognized by the Greek people. We are, of course, optimistic that we're going to overcome all expectations and let's say, skepticism, and we're going to surprise people positively. We think that we can have a very big surprise in the election, and that's coming from what we see out in society. As I said, we see a lot of people coming and believing in the new model for politics. We're not here for artificial dilemmas, of, oh, this or that. People need to believe in politics again, and they need solutions. And that is my responsibility, is to create a team and a program that people can believe in. I actually think Brussels does see it. I think the Greek propaganda machine just doesn't want the Greek people to see all of it. And they're working very hard to block the truth from reaching people's eyes and ears. The fact is, Brussels has castigated the Greek government for its treatment of the rule of law, its treatment of the freedom of press. Right now, the European prosecutor is investigating €2.5 billion of digital projects that probably have a lot of waste in them. About 600 different bids were awarded to only 10 companies, with several examples of the Greek projects being carried out at 10 or 11 times the cost of comparable countries, of projects in comparable countries, like in Portugal, Ireland. So we have some real issues, and as you may know, the judicial system in Greece operates with a very slow pace, and the Greek people don't trust deeply inside them that they can see their last recourse in the judicial system, in the court system. So there is in general in Greece a deep distrust between the people, the citizenry, and the government. And that's why I said before as well, like, we really have to find a new way for the people to feel like politics works for them, as opposed to this being a transactional relationship where everybody says nothing will change. This is Greece, let's live with it. No, we need to be better. There is a way to be better. But this can't happen from the top down. It needs to be grassroots from the bottom up. And honestly, I'm grateful for the European Union, for the European Prosecutor's Office, for investigating these cases, including on the Tempe train crash, where again, like the prosecutor said that the Greek system, let's say, is blocking them from having the right evidence. As you know, our European MEPs, Mr. Arvanidis, Mr. Skondera, have done a very good job of representing the families of the victims in Europe and taking them through the committees and raising the issue. That we shouldn't have to go through Brussels to give people a sense of hope that they will find justice and relief and closure. But it is what it is. And the only way to change it is for us to be in government and to implement the huge reforms that are needed in our country here. We also have this huge wiretapping scandal, the Prime Minister's office, from his nephew. And he's not releasing his staff in the National Intelligence Agency to be able to testify in court without confidentiality restrictions. Under Greek law, the Prime Minister is able to do that right now. And he's not doing this. He's just saying, oh, justice is taking its course. Well, why don't you enable justice to take its course? Why don't you release your subordinates from the confidentiality that they're bound by. You're allowed to do that as their political supervisor, and he's not doing this. I mean, that is a massive scandal, and it's 2 years in the making, and we still have no visibility on what will happen. You know, we have a spyware scandal that's for illegal spyware in our country that was exported with a permit from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by the way, with 93 targets with this predator spyware that may potentially overlap with the hundreds of targets that the National Intelligence Agency was surveilling. We need to have some clarity on that. And what Europe is saying is, we are aware of this. We see this type of let's say, divergence from European norms. And I think it is about time that the people governing us here, instead of criticizing Europe, it's about time they change some things in how they treat Europeans as well as Greeks, trying to gaslight us that we're all crazy. No, we live in an alternate reality. More humility, and let's get some justice for people, and let's hold people accountable, from the Tempe crime to the spyware scandal to all other aspects of waste and fraud that have taken place. I believe in the European Union project 1,000%. 1,000%. And this union needs to get stronger with a very clear military capacity, with real solidarity. Let me tell you that I think the current migration and asylum pact is very, very disappointing. So the fact that we don't have mandatory solidarity and that Greece can become a permanent warehouse for these poor souls at the cost to be negotiated in Greece and other European countries, that's unacceptable. It's a European issue, and we need European solutions on that. We need all countries to carry their weight, carry their fair share of the burden here, and to enable these people to have some relief and dignity. So I strongly believe in the European project, but we all have responsibility to work on it. And this also means that countries in the north can't turn a blind eye when it comes to pushbacks against these refugees, or when it comes to to investing in the south, right? It's very easy to look down at the Mediterranean countries over the past decade because of the debt burden issues. But at the end of the day, we're in a single currency union, and countries that are in a better financial position ought to invest in those in a worse financial position to be able to enable convergence. We have a huge convergence gap in Greece. We're the second from the bottom when it comes to purchasing power, second from the top when it comes to taxation, indirect taxes. We have some of the most expensive electricity pricing and gasoline and food inflation. We're way lower than where we were before the financial crisis in terms of our convergence with the mean of the European Union. Greece does need help from the rest of the European Union, and Greeks will work for it. We have some of the longest working hours in this country. So solidarity, that's the foundation of Europe. I believe in the European project, but we absolutely need solidarity in practice. I think the new SYRIZA is what we call the modern left, which comfortably covers all the center left. I think the tangible differences come down to how we think that we need big government, efficient government, but big government to solve big problems. We can't just have administrative changes on the margin and hope that things will change. When you have, again, in this country, 72% of people 18 to 35 years of age still lives in their childhood bedroom. That is completely unacceptable. We need big government to fix this. We need a big, generous housing program to create clusters of decentralization where people can, also Greeks overseas, can come back and carry out their research and create a certain positive externality in society, in the economy. And so we can't have this by just privatizing everything like the current government is doing. Same thing with healthcare. 40% of healthcare expenditure in Greece is private. And there's massive deficits in the public healthcare system. Their org charts, which are also based on a lower population level, are understaffed by 50% almost. So we need to invest. We need to invest billions to fix these issues before we find ourselves with having decimated the social fiber of society on the one hand, and then find ourselves being a much smaller country population-wise, demographically, in the coming decades. We have a big, we have a national predicament here, and we need to fix it, and we need to start fixing it yesterday. It's up to people to see in practice. I mean, I've been very clear that we're opening up our parties so that anyone who wants to be treated, let's say, with the right inclusion and solidarity and be integrated in our infrastructure, in our party apparatus, is welcome to do that. You know, it's not a matter of personal agendas. I mean, eventually somebody will need to be prime minister of this country, for example, right? But it's up to everyone to face up to their responsibility and to respond to a national desire to have an alternative to the very unsuccessful neoliberal policies we're seeing implemented right now. So from my standpoint, we're open to grow our base and to treat everybody who wants to join this equally. Not as you're new, you're from the past with the type of discrimination that doesn't fit our values. So we're doing that. But I genuinely think, though, the most important thing to change things up is to motivate people on the margin, people who are disappointed with the system, who don't vote, who I do think espouse our values, that something can change, that politics can be done differently, that we can reduce inequalities and give people a chance for a better life. If they believe in that, then we are reshaping the whole game. But that's not just a matter of ideology and what your policy proposals are. That's also a matter of how grounded the grassroots movement of a left party is. The left, the progressive parties, must be grounded in society. That's their base. The base is not an income statement and a balance sheet and a very simple, soundbite-oriented dogma that says privatize everything. Our base is nuanced. Our foundation is nuanced. It's difficult to explain to people, I get it. But that's why we need to be grounded and to be embracing everybody. That in this pluralistic environment, that you have a role and that we will listen to you. If your ideals and your policy proposals align with ours, then our party is open for you. Give you an example, the Green parties. There is no doubt here that we're faced with an existential crisis. We are as progressive as it gets on that. And as big government as it gets on that. So Green parties that want to collaborate with us can be integrated in SYRIZA and have a role and have a presence in it. My responsibility is to open up our structure to allow for that. We align on that. So that is what we need to do, is we need to create a big integrated apparatus, right? These top-down alliances really are not the way to convince people. You have to create an orchestrated movement this way. And the party apparatus needs to match the needs of such a movement.